On my birthday, my parents gave my gift to my sister and said, "You don't deserve anything." I stayed silent. That night, I packed my bags without a word. Weeks later, as they sang happy birthday to her again, their phones lit up with 37 missed calls and a message they never expected. I, 24M, never thought my birthday would be the day I finally stopped caring. Not in the dramatic, movie scene kind of way, but in the quiet, bone-deep way that changes everything. The morning started normal enough. Too normal, actually. I woke up expecting the usual half-hearted acknowledgement, maybe a card, definitely some excuse about why they couldn't make time. What I got instead was so much worse. My parents called me downstairs around noon. My sister was already there, sitting on the couch with that look she always had when she knew something I didn't. Mom gestured to a wrapped box on the coffee table, and for one stupid second, I actually felt hopeful. Dad cleared his throat and told me they'd gotten me something, but after thinking about it, they realized my sister needed it more. She was going through a tough time with her startup failing, and I was doing fine with my programming job, so really, it made more sense this way. I stood there, watching my sister unwrap what was supposed to be mine, a high-end laptop I'd mentioned wanting for months, the kind that would actually handle the machine learning projects I'd been teaching myself. She didn't even look at me as she opened it, just squealed about how perfect it was for her new business idea. Mom said I should be happy for her. That family means supporting each other. Dad added that I didn't deserve anything anyway since I'd been so distant lately, so ungrateful for everything they'd done. The words hung in the air like smoke. I didn't argue, didn't yell, didn't even let my face change. I just nodded slowly, said it was fine, and went back upstairs. They probably thought they'd won, that I'd accepted my place in the family hierarchy we'd been building for 24 years. My sister had always been the golden child, the one with big dreams and bigger failures that somehow always became everyone else's problem to fix. I was the stable one, the reliable one, the one who didn't need attention or help or basic human decency, apparently. That night, after they'd all gone to bed, I started packing. Not everything, just enough. Clothes, documents, my old laptop, the few things that actually mattered. I'd been saving money for years, living frugally while they'd assumed I was just naturally cheap. Turned out having parents who might kick you out at any moment makes you pretty good at financial planning. I had enough for a deposit on an apartment and several months of expenses. I'd been prepared for this day longer than I'd admitted to myself. I left before sunrise, didn't leave a note, didn't say goodbye. My phone started ringing around 9. Mom, probably wondering where her errand boy was. I declined the call. Then another. And another. By noon, I had 37 missed calls and a string of increasingly frantic messages asking where I was, telling me I was being dramatic, demanding I come home immediately. I responded to exactly one message, telling them I'd moved out and needed space. Then I muted the conversation. The apartment I'd found was small but mine. Studio layout, decent neighborhood, close enough to work that I could walk. I spent the first week settling in, buying furniture from thrift stores, establishing routines that didn't involve anyone's expectations but my own. Work noticed the change immediately. I was sharper, more focused, actually enjoying the projects I'd been half-heartedly completing before. My manager mentioned a senior position opening up and suggested I apply. I did. My parents kept trying, of course. The calls never really stopped, just changed flavor. First angry, then confused, then worried in that performative way that wasn't really about me. My sister called once, annoyed that I was causing drama and stressing Mom out. She said I was being selfish, that family doesn't just abandon each other over nothing. I told her she was right and hung up. If this was nothing to them, then my absence shouldn't matter. 3 weeks after I left, I got the senior position. Better pay, better projects, actual respect from colleagues who saw me as competent rather than convenient. I celebrated alone with decent takeout and started planning my next move. I'd been teaching myself advanced programming concepts for years, building a portfolio they'd never bothered to ask about. Now I had the time and mental space to actually do something with it. That's when I started the project. It wasn't revenge, not exactly, more like a demonstration. I built a platform connecting freelance developers with startups, something I'd been conceptualizing for months. Clean interface, smart matching algorithms, built-in contract templates. I worked on it every evening, weekends, any spare moment. 6 weeks after leaving, I launched the beta. 2 months after that, I had paying clients. 3 months in, I was making more from the side business than my day job. My birthday rolled around again the next year. 25, and I spent it at a conference in another city, networking with people who actually valued what I brought to the table. I posted a single photo on social media, me with some industry leaders I'd been talking to about scaling my platform. No caption, just the image. I rarely use social media anymore, had unfollowed my family months ago, but I knew they still checked my profile. This one was intentional. The messages started an hour later. My sister called first, her voice tight with something between anger and disbelief, asking how I was at some fancy tech conference when I was supposed to be the family disappointment. I didn't answer. Mom texted asking why I hadn't told them about my success, why I was shutting them out. Didn't they deserve to know what was happening in my life? Dad's message was shorter, just asking if we could talk. I left them all on read. But I wasn't done. See, my sister's birthday was 2 weeks after mine, and I knew exactly how that day would go. They'd throw her the usual party, invite relatives, make a big show of supporting her latest venture. They'd sing happy birthday, she'd blow out candles, and everyone would pretend the golden child was still shining bright despite the string of failed businesses and borrowed money she never paid back. I'd been preparing something special for that day. Nothing illegal, nothing cruel, just truth with perfect timing. I'd spent months documenting everything. Screenshots of family group chats where they'd mocked my career choices. Recordings from years ago where they'd openly discussed how I was the backup plan, the boring one, the one who existed to make my sister look good by comparison. Bank statements showing the thousands they'd loaned her that I'd secretly been told to help repay through family contributions I'd never agreed to. Photos of gifts they'd claimed were for both of us, but only she'd received. Every birthday where my celebration was an afterthought or canceled entirely because something with her took priority. I compiled it all into a clean, professional presentation. Nothing dramatic, no emotional commentary, just dates, facts, and evidence. Then I created a private website, password protected, and sent the link to my parents and sister the night before her birthday party. The password hint was simple: my birthday, the one they'd given away a year ago. They didn't open it immediately. Why would they? They were busy preparing for the important child's important day. I tracked the website analytics from my apartment, watching, waiting. The party started at 2 based on the invitation I'd seen posted online. By 3, someone had figured out the password. The site had 3 visitors. By 3:30, my phone exploded. 37 missed calls in the span of an hour. I counted, appreciated the symmetry. Mom's voicemails ranged from sobbing to screaming. Dad's were quieter, more dangerous, demanding I take the site down, asking how dare I air family business this way. My sister sent a stream of texts calling me every name she could think of, saying I was destroying her special day, that I was a psychopath who couldn't let go of the past. The last message came from Mom. We need to talk. This isn't you. Please come home. I read them all, sitting on my couch in my small apartment that had become more of a home than their house ever was. Then I replied with one message to the family group chat I hadn't left, just muted. I told them the site wasn't public, only they had access, so the only people who knew were the ones who needed to. I explained that I hadn't contacted any relatives, hadn't posted anything publicly, hadn't tried to embarrass them beyond holding up a mirror. If they were ashamed of what they saw, maybe the problem wasn't the reflection. I mentioned that I'd moved on, built a life they'd never bothered to ask about, and found success they didn't think I deserved. I finished by saying I wasn't angry anymore, just done. They could keep the perfect family narrative they'd constructed, but I wouldn't be part of it. Then I left the group chat for real this time. Update 1. The next few weeks were predictably messy. My phone kept ringing with extended family members who'd apparently been told some version of events where I was the villain. Cousins I barely knew called to lecture me about forgiveness. Aunts sent long texts about family unity. My grandmother left a voicemail saying she was disappointed in me for hurting my mother. I blocked most of them, responded to a few with simple facts, and generally continued living my life. The funny thing about burning bridges is how much lighter you feel without them. My business kept growing. I hired my first employee, then a second. The platform started getting attention from tech blogs and investor groups. I was too busy building something real to care about their damage control. My sister apparently had a breakdown at her birthday party, which I learned from a mutual friend who reached out to check if I was okay. The friend said my sister had been crying about how I'd ruined everything, how I was always jealous of her, how she couldn't believe her own brother would betray her like this. My parents had spent the rest of the party consoling her and telling relatives I was going through something, that I'd always been sensitive, that they were worried about my mental health. The narrative shifted, as it always does in families like mine. Suddenly, I wasn't the forgotten child. I was the troubled one, the one who'd snapped, the one who needed help. My mom started sending articles about therapy and mental health, framing her concern in clinical language that somehow made it worse. Dad sent a formal email asking what it would take to reconcile, what I wanted from them, as if this was a business negotiation. I wanted nothing. That was the part they couldn't understand. Update 2. 6 months after my sister's birthday, I got a call from my uncle, Dad's brother, someone I'd actually respected growing up. He asked if we could meet for coffee, said he wasn't calling to lecture me, just wanted to hear my side. Something in his voice sounded genuine, so I agreed. He showed up looking older than I remembered, ordered us both coffee, and got straight to it. He told me he'd always noticed how they treated me differently, had tried to bring it up to my dad years ago, and been shut down. He apologized for not doing more, for assuming I was handling it fine because I never complained. Then he told me something I hadn't known. Apparently, after I left, my parents had started having serious financial problems. My sister's latest business venture had gone under badly, leaving her with significant debt they'd co-signed on. They'd been counting on my eventual help, the way they always had when she screwed up. Without me there to silently contribute, to be the backup plan, they were actually facing consequences. They'd already downsized their house, were selling the second car. My sister had moved back in with them. My uncle said he wasn't telling me this to make me feel guilty, but because I deserved to know that my absence had weight, that I'd mattered more than they'd ever let on, just in the worst possible way. He told me he was proud of what I'd built, that he'd looked up my platform and was impressed. He said I'd become the man he always knew I could be, despite everything working against me. We talked for 2 hours. He didn't ask me to forgive them, didn't suggest I reach out. He just listened, shared his own observations, and reminded me that family is supposed to be more than blood and obligation. When we parted ways, he hugged me and said if I ever needed anything, references, advice, just someone to talk to, his door was open. That conversation changed something. Not my decision to stay away, but my understanding of it. I'd spent so long thinking I was the problem, the one who wasn't enough, that realizing my absence actually mattered felt validating in a way I hadn't expected. They'd built their whole dynamic on me being there to absorb the neglect, to be the contrast that made my sister shine. Without me, the system collapsed. Update 3. A year and a half after I left, my platform got acquired by a major tech company. Not a full buyout. I retained partial ownership and stayed on as director of development, but enough money to fundamentally change my life. The announcement went out on business sites, got picked up by some tech news outlets. I didn't hide my name or my story, just let the professional facts speak for themselves. My parents found out through a relative who'd seen the news. Mom called from a number I didn't recognize, got through before I could screen it. She was crying, telling me how proud she was, how she'd always known I'd do something special, how she'd been telling everyone about her son, the successful entrepreneur. I listened in silence as she rewrote history in real time, turning years of neglect into some kind of tough love strategy that had made me strong. When she finally stopped talking, I asked her one question. Did she remember my 24th birthday? There was a long pause. She said of course she did. They'd gotten me a nice card. I corrected her gently. They'd given my gift to my sister and told me I didn't deserve anything. She went quiet, then started saying I was misremembering. That hadn't happened. I was confused. I told her I had to go and hung up. That was the last time we spoke. My sister reached out through LinkedIn a few months later, professional and distant, congratulating me on my success and asking if I'd be interested in advising her new startup. The audacity actually made me laugh. I declined politely, wished her well, and blocked her on the platform. I'm 26 now. I live in a bigger apartment in a better neighborhood, have a job I actually enjoy, run a business that helps people, and maintain relationships with people who value me. I haven't seen my parents in over 2 years. I don't hate them. I just don't need them, and that might be worse for them than anger ever could be. Sometimes I think about that night I packed my bags, how terrified I was under the calm exterior, how I thought leaving might break me. Instead, it saved me. The message they never expected wasn't my success or my platform or the website documenting their failures. It was simpler than that. I learned to live without them, and I was happier for it. That was the real revenge, not needing them at all. If you like this story, please like this video and subscribe us for more such real life-based stories. Thanks in advance.